Hi everyone, it is so good to see you. Welcome to KREM 2 News at noon. I'm Laura Papetti, and we begin by going outside and enjoying a little bit of the nice weather. A little bit breezy though out there, and in fact it's getting downright windy, so we're going to check in with Thomas Patrick.
Yeah, it is starting to get a little bit windier as we hit the noon hour. Nothing too offensive just yet, nothing too violent at the moment. Our current wind gusts have been upwards of 25 miles per hour. That is manageable, but it has been increasing recently. We are under wind advisories for central Washington because this is the area that is going to experience some of the strongest winds, especially right along the I-90 and Highway 2 corridors. Obviously, that would be a headwind or a tailwind, depending on which direction you are traveling down those highways and interstates respectively. But up to 50 miles per hour, that is starting to get to the threshold where some minor wind damage is possible with those types of wind speeds. Not realized just yet though. We're waiting for this cold front to get a little bit closer. Basically right in front of that cold front is where some of the strongest winds will be felt. It's actually quite parallel to where that boundary is. And yes, it has been a little bit cloudy over eastern Washington at the moment. Today, still in the 70s, but won't be after this. So coming up, going to detail just when those winds are going to peak and how much colder Friday and this weekend is expected to be.
All right, we're tracking that wind. In the meantime, in our ongoing Boomtown series, we've been diving into how our growing population is affecting all of us. But the changes impact more than just humans. Our Nicole Hernandez looking into how the changing landscape has impacted the deer population throughout the inland Northwest.
The aptly named Peaceful Valley is home to the river, a bunch of people, and wildlife. Spotting these deer always seems to seal the deal on the peaceful of the valley, until it's not so peaceful. Deer are having to adapt as humans destroy their peace.
It's all connected.
Samantha Bundick, hoofed mammal expert, says it's not just here by the river, but across the entire inland Northwest.
They just figured out how to coexist.
Coexisting is far from thriving, though.
You are seeing a declining population of deer.
Some human-caused.
It got hit by a car.
And some more natural, like from chronic wasting disease.
It's pretty bad. It's a disease you don't want to have in your state.
That's where Hunter Westacott comes in.
The samples we take are retropharyngeal lymph nodes.
Both North Idaho and Washington test deer for chronic wasting disease.
We haven't detected it here in Washington yet, which is good.
But there are cases in Idaho and British Columbia.
It can have pretty detrimental effects on your population sizes if it gets a strong enough hold.
While the disease is natural, humans are contributing to its spread. One example with feeding piles.
Artificial areas where deer can congregate and spread disease that way.
Also our infrastructure, particularly roads.
There are roads that are real barriers and they cannot cross, and that fragments habitat.
Our roads are segregating deer populations. That's bad for a couple of reasons. One, the less room deer have to spread out, the easier disease can spread. Two, genetic variation.
Having a lot of genetic variation in a population is very important for long-term success.
Without the ability to disperse and migrate, that genetic variation is harder to accomplish.
There is research showing that subspecies are being created because the genetics aren't being mixed anymore.
And then there's the obvious problem with roads.
Human collisions are one of the biggest mortality factors for ungulates.
Of all these problems, there's one thing in common. Us.
My advice is always to just let them be and enjoy watching them.
And when you can, plant native plants in your yard.
We're taking away from their habitat, and the best thing you can do is give it back to them.
An attempt to restore some of the peace the population had before us. In Spokane, Nicole Hernandez, KREM 2 News.
It is coming up on almost 12:05 right now. The woman accused of murdering her ex-boyfriend last month in Meade was in court for the first time this week. 37-year-old Cynthia Khalil is charged with murder. Prosecutors say she killed her ex, Justin Daniel, during a custody battle. In court yesterday, Daniel's family asked the court that she be held without bond. Several of his family members spoke yesterday, including Daniel's teenage daughter, who was home during the alleged attack. We did blur her face since she is a minor and also a victim.
The thought of her being able to pay her way out of her consequences makes me feel sick, and I know that she deserves every ounce of punishment for the choices she decided to make the night my father was killed.
After all the testimony, the county court commissioner decided to not grant bond. Khalil will remain in jail until her trial. She has an arraignment hearing coming up on May 29th. Looking ahead, Idaho voters will be filling out their ballots coming up next week. So KREM 2's Brandon T. Jones is letting us know what voters need to know before the polls open.
Yeah, well, it'll be a pretty busy week next week for the elections office here in Idaho because there's two key dates to remember, and we'll start first with May 21st, so next Tuesday, because that's the Idaho primary election. So with that approaching, voters are getting prepared as well. We'll talk about that a little bit more. The primary includes races focused on state and county level elections, and the primary is always held in even number years, hence 2024 on the third Tuesday in May. Whichever candidate receives the most votes during this primary election will then go on to run in the general election in November. Polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and again, that's on May 21st, this upcoming Tuesday. The next date now to remember will be May 23rd at the Kootenai County Fairgrounds. That's when the Kootenai County Democrats will be hosting their presidential caucus. This is solely for registered Democrats and unaffiliated voters that will decide who Idaho will support for the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. These voters will have to confirm once they check in that they did not participate in the Republican presidential caucus that was held back on March 2nd. And unlike the presidential primary, run and paid for through the state, caucuses are run by the parties. But for now, reporting here in Kootenai County, Brandon T. Jones, KREM 2 News.